So we are talking about places that we have lived and places that we have traveled this week. I'm pretty boring. I've lived in 4 states. I've traveled very briefly to a couple of others and traveled through others to get to places that I'm going to live. I was born and raised in Oregon, and I lived there until I was 18. I very briefly left a couple times with family to visit other family in California and Washington, but we were right within a couple hours of the border of Oregon, so I don't really count it. And we were just seeing family, so we never really saw anything or did anything. When I was 18, I moved up to Seattle in Washington, and I lived there for about 7 years. I never made it out of Washington State while I was living there, except to go see my mom and the kids in Oregon. I never made it to Canada, which I regret, but hopefully will make it to Canada at some point in my life. After I married the Badger, I took my very first plane trip, and I flew from Seattle to Georgia, which was where he was stationed at the time. And I lived in Georgia with the Badger for 2 years. Once again, I didn't really leave the state. We would go to Florida to use the Jacksonville airport, but we never really stayed longer than it took to catch our flight or leave the airport. When we were getting ready to PCS to where we are now, we took a road trip to go see his family in Missouri so we could stop by and see what was available in the town, what kind of town we were going to be moving into, and what the housing situation was going to be like. So we drove from Georgia to Tennessee and stayed the night in Clarksville, which is the town outside Fort Campbell. And then we drove from Tennessee through Kentucky into Missouri, and on our way back we drove through Alabama, which I do not recommend, and cut across Tennessee back into Georgia. Now that we are in Tennessee at Fort Campbell, I again don't really leave the state much. We go to Missouri to see his family. I took a business trip to Montana to cook for a retreat for about a week. We were up in the mountains. It was really nice. Montana is really beautiful. We have yet to really travel beyond that. It's not uncommon for us to end up in Kentucky randomly because Kentucky and Tennessee, the border cuts kind of straight through the post. So if you're going on post, chances are you're going to end up in Kentucky at some point in your day. I'm hoping to eventually go see my sister who is up in Pennsylvania with her husband, and my cousin who is in Virginia with his wife, and I really, really want to go to Europe with the Badger because he promised he would take me to Europe when we got married. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I don't think waiting in airports for your connecting flight counts as visiting other states. But if it does, I've been to Texas. And I don't know where else. I can't remember where all my connecting flights have been. Hopefully, Freda on Thursday will have a much more exciting tale of travel and life.